I feel like it's a trend on television for all the shows to feel kind of the same. I mean, that's kind of the point. It's to make a product that's mass produced and people buy it and they give you watch time through ads, the original watch time, not like the dumb fucking YouTube version. They give you something through watching their ads, and then because people see the ads, they know the products exist and they slowly mold their way into your mind, and thus you're buying their products. That's kind of the way TV works. It's an exchange. You watch ads, therefore you get a television show. A lot of the time the television show has direct advertising in it, but the people who make it, a lot of the time they do care about what it is that they're making. Even if it is like their first job making a show, they usually care about the product itself. That doesn't make the product good, but it means that there's some kind of genuine feeling there that they have. And I can feel that when I watch it. As someone who doesn't make things on the same level but makes things myself, I can see it when that's there. And I feel like when I was younger, 6, 7, 8, and they would just randomly play these old 80s movies on cable channels. They would randomly come out with all of these shows. It felt like there was more fervor back then. It felt like there was more excitement around TV, more things being made, more things being done with the medium, even though, ostensibly, on the surface, a lot of the shows were basically the same. Sometimes you'd get a lower budget version of the same, and hey, sometimes it would have just a few tweaks around the edges that made that show individually interesting. I didn't particularly care that all of these shows had a lot of similarities. I didn't even particularly care that they had plot holes or flaws or anything like this. I just cared that it was a TV show, that I could look at it and I could identify with some kind of visual element and say, oh, that looks nice, it looks pretty, maybe that guy has some things going on, he's kind of interesting. I looked at the tangible details and I was happy looking at the tangible details. Not just that, I was willing to just lay on my couch and listen to these people speak all day. It didn't matter to me. What mattered was the fact that I was consuming. But it wasn't a passive kind of consumption either. I say I was lying on the couch, but at the same time, despite the fact that I was laying there, and it would seem like I was a total vegetable at the time, inside of my mind it was buzzing with ideas, with feelings, with immersion. It felt like, despite the fact that there were plot holes galore and things to fall into otherwise, I felt like I was in that world, because my imagination, especially when I was younger, it would get so deep that I just loved watching anything that I watched. It didn't matter to me. Of course, there were a few exceptions. I've always been pretty bad about doing things that I don't like doing. Immediately, if I saw a show that I didn't like, I would view it as painful in some way. I would have to turn it off because I literally cannot be made to do things that I don't like doing. That's just how I am. And so I would watch a lot of shows, and they would have this mystic kind of mystery about them. It felt magical, it felt dangerous and new, like there was always something different happening. And now that I'm getting into Japanese television through this AQ stream service, or it only offers a few channels, but it gives you a live stream of Japanese television. I was just watching this show on TV Tokyo where these two Japanese girls were just walking the street, walking their dog, and sometimes they point out at a random tree or something and the show will zoom in. And then there's a lot of text on the screen, not like overt subtitles. They just put text where you can't really tell what someone is saying, which is good for me because I recognize some of the kanji characters even now at this early stage in my learning. And so I can watch the show and it feels like I'm peering into their existence. Like they know a camera is there and I know a camera is there. And yet when they walk into their family member's house and they're cooking food and they're all laughing with each other, it feels like I'm genuinely watching someone's family just partake in food and enjoy themselves. It felt like I was just watching a higher effort version of people walking their dog, and they weren't even particularly charismatic. It was just the fact that it was happening, that it felt real, that it felt like I was viewing an experience of someone else, while also being able to see flashy, well, I say flashy, but cheap editing that just shows up out of nowhere every now and then to zoom in on something. It seemed like the show had no budget, and it didn't need to. What mattered was the mystique of it. What mattered was the magical feeling that you feel when you simply lay back in your chair and you let the show overtake you. When you feel like you're watching something, but you're not just watching it. It feels like you're in that thing. It didn't matter to me how many words I could or could not comprehend, because I was so enraptured by the feeling of that program that in that moment I felt like I was there with them. Now that's a feeling that I don't get very often. That's a feeling that I only really got when I was younger. In fact, probably the last time I coherently felt that feeling was, I don't know, Spirited Away, when I saw Spirited Away in theaters about 2 years ago when they did the re-release. Maybe it was a year ago. No, it wasn't a year ago, because in 2018 I was moving most of that year. But yeah, like, it's not a feeling that I normally get, and when I'm just flipping through the very few channels that even exist on this live streaming site, and I watch like Japanese game shows or a news-esque program where they take Shinzo Abe's head and then they cut out Donald Trump's head and they put them on little chibi figures and stuff, and like they have 4 different moderators talking about it, or like even just watching a game of badminton or soccer, like there's something special about it. Like the way it's presented, the way that they talk about it, the sound of the language, the graphics that they use. Have you ever noticed that in Japanese TV shows, they always use very colorful, bright text that feels like it's from a 90s music video? Like, all of it feels like they used the 1990s version of, I don't know, Final Cut or something, and they just put all of the most random effects on there, that they ran it through some kind of MS Paint machine. Of course, not all Japanese shows are like that. They have a lot of very modern stuff going on, but I think that's all the more of a reason to watch those shows, because there's always something new, there's always something happening. Now, when I was younger and I was getting into TV and I saw all these different things happening, we had, PBS and stuff like that, where you could watch something a bit more educational, or, you could go to the local channels and you could watch Saturday morning cartoons. And the thing about Saturday morning cartoons is that they had a lot of variety. Sometimes they would mix in educational programs, sometimes they would mix in live action programs, and sometimes they'd have anime and just random cartoons that they'd be rerunning. But I would catch those goddamn cartoons every single Saturday. And sometimes I'd even watch the shitty cartoons that come on Sunday on Fox and stuff before they played church hearings and things like that. I would just watch it. And the fact that church hearings were even being played as well was inherently interesting to me. I didn't give a fuck about Christianity. I was an atheist as a kid. But just hearing them talk about it, seeing it, the fact that, like, TV exists is so interesting to me. And especially back then. And, like, I think there's a level of disconnect that's built when you're watching shows always online, because when you have that overchoice, when you can just choose whatever you want to watch, something about that mysticism of just flipping through the channels and then finding something special that you never would have known about, and hey, it might be a little bit mediocre, but there's something about it. There's something special, that feeling, that unique heart that individuals put their heart into it, and that's all the more reason for you to feel it. Like, I don't know, I feel like I'm using a lot of not extended metaphors. I feel like I'm using a lot of very, like, wordy terminology, but I don't really know how else to explain it. Like, it's just something that I feel in my heart when I watch television. And when I look at, like, American TV now, like, all the shows feel like they're trying to be The Walking Dead, if there's any shows there at all. Most of it's just reruns and stuff. Like, there's not even that much interesting going on. at least when I was a kid, like if they were going to play reruns of Bewitched or what's that one cowboy show? Uh Gunsmoke. If they were gonna play like reruns of Gunsmoke or something, at least it would be in the afternoon, you know, before Jeopardy or The Price is Right would come on. Oh my god, I fucking loved Price is Right as a kid. Every single time. CBS. Every single time it came on CBS, I would always watch Price is Right. Or The Wheel of Fortune. It would come on at like 6, 5 p.m. around there. On ABC, I would always watch Wheel of Fortune. It was like a tradition for me because I would go over to my grandpa's house, and typically, you know, around that time, my dad would want to take the TV and turn on something. But at my grandpa's house, I would always watch Wheel of Fortune with him, and I never really knew how to talk to my grandpa because he was just kind of like this strange Jewish guy. Like, you know, he was very cynical and sad, and like he, you know, he would make kind of dark jokes every now and again, which is, I mean, it's so-so. It is what it is. But like, I didn't really know how to connect with him, and I wanted to. And so I would watch the Wheel of Fortune with him, and then I would go, oh yeah, you know, it's that one. And when I got an answer right, when I actually knew the answer on the Wheel of Fortune, it felt so good because I felt like I was impressing him in some way by knowing how to do that. And like my grandpa, I only knew him for so long. Like he died a couple years after I can remember. And so like stuff like that is just things that I'm not going to be able to forget. When I watched Escape from New York the first time, it was on like channel 3, channel 4, something like that. The CW channel is what it was being played on. Actually, I think that was actually channel 32. There was channel 32, and then there was channel 50 something. But on the CW, I remember it was like 9, 10 a.m. in the morning, and they had played Escape from New York, and the sequel, Escape from LA. And I watched them back to back. There were some ads in between, but the ads weren't even like that egregious. I was just so struck by the film because I had never watched it before. I was about 9, 8 years old. I was just laying there on that couch, you know, looking at this ginormous CRT television, this Sony Trinitron, this behemoth of human technology. And I was just totally like engrossed in the experience, and it happened at random. That's the special part about it, is that if I wanted to turn on Escape from New York right now, or for that matter, any film that I thought might be interesting, I could just do it. But that makes that endless amount of choice ends up making your attention span get smaller, because when you know that there's infinitely better options, you're not going to be able to sit there and stop and smell the roses. And you're going to get something more when you stop and smell the roses. Because on a technical level, something like the show I was just watching isn't super great, but the fact that I'm watching it, the fact that I'm in the position to really take it in, gives me more of the ability to understand it and to appreciate that show for what it is. If you are put into a position where you have to watch something where there isn't anything else, you're going to come out of it with more of a positive stance, because there's always going to be positives in the thing that you're watching. You just have to see it. You just have to focus on those elements instead of focusing on the negative ones. And I feel like the mysticism of that, the ability to like something that you would not have liked otherwise, given the fact that you have millions upon millions of choices, is just kind of gone with the internet era. And even with modern day television, in America at least, it's so desolate and boring, and it's nothing like what it used to be. And watching Japanese TV right now, man, every single day when I wake up, I do my kanji drills, I do, SRS, the sentence mining, and so on. And in the background, if I'm not doing anything with an audio component, obviously if I'm doing SRS for kanji, it's, I can just have TV on in the background. And some of these shows, when they come on, like, it surprises me. It surprises me how intrigued I can be by a show. Like right now, look at these dudes. They're fucking beating each other up and shit. I was actually watching a show while filming this vlog. That was what the background noise was. But like, I'm so surprised by how engrossed I can be in these shows just by the fact that they exist, and because I've put myself in this self-imposed position to study Japanese and so on. And upon finding this TV channel live stream, I feel like I'm almost in that world. Like, I'm not in Japan, but like watching their television is putting my mind's eye into the experience of a Japanese person in a small way. And I found that that experience is so similar to the type of experience I had when I was a little kid, an experience that I cherish and care for very much. That experience of just finding random things and watching them because there isn't anything else to watch. And when you watch them, it feels special because you're put into a situation where you have to find the positives. And when you do, you notice things you wouldn't have noticed otherwise. That's what attention span is. Like, people, they talk a lot about how, oh, my attention span is going away. But what is that? In my opinion at least, attention span is when you're able to sit there and consciously do something while seeing the positive elements in it, while enjoying it. And so when you stop enjoying something, your attention goes away because you don't like it anymore. You're not having as much fun with it. That's my personal definition. And so I think my attention span kind of dwindled, and I got more and more specific, more egotistical, well, not egotistical, more cynical, I should say, more cynical about shows, because I just wanted them to fit this very specific mold when that's not what art is supposed to be. I mean, yeah, art under the system we currently have is kind of commodified and kind of messed up, but the human heart still exists. You just have to find it. You have to search for the human heart, and you'll see it. You'll see it when it's there. You'll know what it is. And I feel like this cyclical mindset of just watching things that are going to be my favorite or otherwise I just get bored is born out of this culture of overchoice, of having too many things to watch. And so I don't think that's really good for you. I don't think it's good to just have so much that your attention just leaves like that. I think it's much better and much more fulfilling to stop and smell the roses, find the positive things in this experience. And I don't know, there's a very immersive quality, something very special in my heart that I feel when I'm watching these Japanese TV shows over the last couple days, and I don't know what it is, other than how closely it relates to that experience, but also, like, on an aesthetic level, so many of these things are stuff that I wanted as a kid, that I had thought about, and I just never saw on American TV. And they're doing that. They're doing the things that I wanted as a kid, I don't know, man. It just makes me happy. I guess that's the only way I can frame it.